Hello YouTubers. Today I'm going to show you how to check your plants, your potted plants that is, to make sure that the roots haven't overgrown their container. You don't want your roots to overgrow their container because it promotes a condition of the plant called being root bound. And when a plant is root bound, the roots basically strangle themselves and starve the plant of nutrition and air and water. So you want to make sure that your plants aren't root bound, and if they are, then it's time to transplant. In this video, like I said earlier, we're going to take a look at how to go about determining whether a plant is root bound or not. Any plant's a good candidate for checking to see if it's root bound, but with this tomato that you see here, it's especially important because tomatoes are fast growers. Any annuals, be it vegetables or ornamental plants, grow very quickly, and because they grow very quickly, they can easily outgrow their container. So let's check the roots on this tomato seedling to see how it's doing. So here we have this tomato plant. It's been in this container for about a week or two because I regularly transplant these when they're seedlings because they grow so fast. So what I'd like to do is hold a container in my hand, and then I'll take, if I can grab it here, I'll take a shovel or a hand trowel, something that has some weight to it, and slowly I hold a cup like this so that the plant doesn't fall out, turn it over, and then gently tap the bottom to loosen the container from its sides, and eventually it will just pop out, and then I pull it off. So there's the container, and here are the roots, and as you can see, this is a pretty good candidate for transplant. This is the time that you transplant. You've got a few roots coming out, but not so many that it's strangling itself. But you don't want to get to the point to where the roots start spiraling around the container, because then they grow in a habit and they'll want to stay in that direction. You want them to be I guess straight is the word. So let's take this tomato plant and transplant this. So let's do that now. When you're ready to transplant, it's good to have a few things on hand. Here I have a wheelbarrow that I like to use because it makes a stable platform that I can take anywhere around the yard, so it's real handy. If I'm doing a big job, then I can work directly in the wheelbarrow, but what I like to do if I'm working on a smaller job is add another container, and here it is. So here I have a concrete mixing tub that you can get at any home supply center. I like to just drop this into my wheelbarrow. It fits perfectly, and it's great for mixing small amounts of potting mix. Hand pruners are a real handy thing to have during repotting because you may need to cut some roots, or you may need to cut some stems, or just do some pruning on your transplant at the time that you're transplanting it. So keep these around, they're real good. Of course, you should always have your transplant candidate handy when you're doing your transplant. Another handy item is a sieve, so that you can filter out the large particles in your soil medium. This is a pizza grate of some sort, but it comes in handy for getting those large particles out of your seedling mix. So keep that handy if you need it. Some gardening gloves are good to have as well, especially if your soil is has got some clay content in it, or you know, it definitely has bacteria in it. So it's a good precaution if you're going to be doing a lot of work in the garden to have some gardening gloves. Potting containers also necessary for your repotting. I like to use these growers containers because they're cheap and they don't have to be pretty for my needs. Ideally, you want a container that is not too much larger than the transplant container. For example, here, this container is quite a few sizes larger than needed. Ideally, I would need a container probably, oh, I don't know, half this size, but because I want to give this a permanent home, I'm going to use this container. But ideally, you want to work up in sizes. You don't want to go super large, because then you risk overwatering or keeping the soil too moist for the plant. So, but we'll do it with this for now, and it should work just as well. Just keep in mind that ideally you don't really want to go too many sizes larger than you need. Last but not least, you'll need some potting soil. You can buy your own ready-made potting soil, but I like to make my own because I know what's in it, and I can make it drain as quickly or as slowly as I need, and I can custom tailor the nutritional requirements of the soil for the specific plant that I'm putting in. This here is just some peat moss that has nothing in it other than peat moss. It's not fertilized or anything. It's a fine-grained particle that holds moisture really well, but it also drains, and the plants really seem to like it. So we'll add this, and I'm going to go get the other ingredients. So here I have some fully composted compost. It's mature, and that means it doesn't have any ammonia in it or things that will actually stunt the growth of your plants or kill your plants altogether. And this is a coarser grain material. As you can see, it's got some large bark chunks in it, and other things. It's got some nutrition. This one in particular has some mycorrhizae cultures in it. So I like to use this because it helps with drainage, and it helps with long-term moisture retention, because when these small pieces of bark saturate with wood, they hold on to that moisture for an increased amount of time, and they also provide really good drainage. So they provide air spaces for the roots to grow into. So if your roots are feeling a little flooded, they can find an air space and get the oxygen they need from those air spaces. So I'm using an equal part of this to the peat moss that I have down here, and I'll just throw that in and go get my other ingredients. In my potting mix, I like to throw in a little vermiculite. That's these, so it's kind of like a mica type substance. I think some sort of expanded clay, but it also helps with drainage and water retention. So for good measure, I like to throw in about a handful of that as well. I'm also going to throw in some tomato fertilizer here, and I'm not real picky about how much I add. I just kind of eyeball it. Of course, you should follow your instructions if you're not feeling so sure, but really I've never had any problems with adding too much or too little fertilizer. So I'll just sprinkle some of that in there. And for good measure, I like to add bone meal. This also has, this particular brand also has bacillus and all sorts of other beneficial bacteria, which helps promote plant health. So I take some of this, maybe, I don't know, so much. Sprinkle that in there. And that's about it. Sometimes I also add some larger particles, maybe even perlite, but I don't like perlite because it floats. I like heavier stuff, and the name escapes me at the moment, but you know, it looks like perlite, but it's actually a stone product. So if you need really quick draining soil, you want to use some large particles that are maybe the size of about half the size of a pea. If you're planting trees and things like that in a pot that really just don't like wet feet, I would recommend using that. So at this point, basically take everything, and I don't like to keep it wet. I like to keep it kind of dry when I'm working with it, and I'll stir it up real well. Of course, this is not enough for this container, so I'm gonna have to add some more. You should always take into account the size of your container when you're mixing your potting mix. I've decided to switch to a smaller container because it makes more sense, and I didn't want to use so much soil on such a large container when I don't even know what I'm going to do with the plant. This container here is it's a double-walled container, and normally it doesn't have holes in it, so I drilled some holes in the bottom. What I like about this container is it's got two walls. It's got an inside wall and an outside wall, which is good because it shields the plant roots from heat. The double wall acts like an insulator, so it'll keep it cooler during the daytime, and it'll slow down the cooling at night, so it keeps a more stable environment for your plant. So this is a good container. So what I'll do here is fill my container to a certain amount, and what I'll do to size up how much soil I need in here to start with is I'll place my planting inside the container and see where the top of this soil line reaches, and that should be where I want the final soil line. And as you can tell here, the soil line is just about right. With tomato plants, you can take off the smaller leaves here at the bottom and then bury the plant down to its neck. Because it'll grow additional roots on the stem that you bury. But in this case, I think I'll just leave it because I've already buried it once, and I'll let it grow out this time. So here's my plant, and I'll take it out. And as you can see, as before, the roots are nice and healthy, and I'll gently place it in my container as such. I like to place my plants in the center of the container. That way the roots have an equal opportunity of growing out into the new soil. So with that said, I take my soil and place it in the pot. I like to start on one side, that way it steadies the plant, and then I'll turn the pot around 180 degrees and place some soil on the other side so that the soil doesn't push the plant to one side, and then I'll fill in the rest. And as you can see, this soil is this potting soil I'm putting in is dry. Well, it's got some moisture in it, but it's relatively dry. And so now I'll press the soil down a little bit, firm it down, press the plant down into the bottom soil, add just a little more, and there we have it, a freshly repotted tomato plant. Now of course, you generally want to water this, and so we'll do that now. So now I'm going to give this plant a light soaking. I guess that's an oxymoron, light and soaking. And I do that by not watering on the old soil that I put in, but watering around the edges where I put the new soil in. And should be a slow and controlled process. You shouldn't just dump your water in there. Just kind of sprinkle it in like that, and let that initial watering kind of work its way into the soil and saturate some of the soil, and wait a few minutes, and then give it another watering at about the same rate, and you keep doing that until water just starts to drip out the bottom. As you can see here, this water is dripping out the bottom. I don't know if you can see that, but it's coming out the bottom. But that doesn't mean that the container is saturated. Sorry about all the noise. That doesn't mean that the container is saturated. It means that I'm watering a little too quickly. So I'm just going to set this aside and wait for it to soak in, and then I'll give it another little watering. It should be good to go. Actually, if your transplant soil is already saturated, you don't even really need to water the soil. You know, give it a couple of days and then you can water the whole thing. I like to label my plants, and the way I do that is I use a piece of glass, and I take some masking tape and I stick it onto the glass. Then I make my label using a felt tip marker, and I will cut off a slice to use as my label, and peel that off and affix it to my container so I know what it is. This is in this case, this is an Abe Lincoln tomato, and there you have it. When I'm ready to transplant or repot this plant, I can just take this sticker off and place it on my new container. That's all there is to it. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video and that you learned something from it. You know, gardening is it's a learning experience. You'll never know what's right until you actually try it yourself, and different things work in different ways for different folks, depending on your soil, on your weather, your gardening conditions, and your schedule. There's a whole number of factors that can affect the final outcome of your endeavors. So, like I said, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please like and subscribe to my videos, and we'll see you soon. Thanks.